I'm 73 years old, and I need to tell you something before I run out of time to say it. I spent 50 years of my life making sure everyone else was comfortable with who I was, and I didn't even know I was doing it. I thought I was just being good, considerate, the kind of person people could count on. I didn't realize I was disappearing. When I was younger, maybe 25 or so, I worked at a mid-sized accounting firm. Nothing glamorous. I wasn't chasing some big career. I just wanted to do well, be liked, not cause problems. There was this manager, Richard, who had a temper. Not violent, just sharp. He'd snap at people in meetings if they pushed back on him. So I learned not to push back. I learned to nod, to say, that makes sense, even when it didn't. I told myself I was being smart, keeping the peace. Why make things harder than they needed to be? But it didn't stop at work. My wife, Helen, was strong-willed. I loved that about her. She knew what she wanted, and most of the time I'd just go along with it. Where we'd eat, where we'd vacation, how we'd spend our weekends. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't care either way. But I think, deep down, I did care. I just didn't want her to think I was difficult. We had 2 kids, a son and a daughter. I loved them more than anything. But when they were growing up, I never really told them what I thought, not about the big things. My son wanted to drop out of college his junior year. He hated his major. He wanted to try something else, maybe take a year off. Helen said no. She was worried he'd never go back, and I agreed with her out loud. But honestly, I thought he should take the time, figure himself out. I never said that, because I didn't want to create conflict. I didn't want Helen upset with me. I didn't want my son to think I was undermining his mother. So I stayed quiet. He finished school, he got a degree he never used, and for years after he'd make these comments about how he wished someone had told him it was okay to wait, to think it through. I was someone. I could have told him. I didn't. That's what people-pleasing actually is. It's not about being nice. It's about being so afraid of disapproval that you stop existing in the moments that matter. And the cruelest part? No one asks you to do it. Helen never told me to keep my opinions to myself. Richard never said, don't challenge me. My kids never asked me to be invisible. I did that on my own. Because somewhere along the way, I decided that being liked was more important than being known. I think it started when I was young. My father was critical. Not cruel, just hard to please. You could do 10 things right and he'd mention the one thing you missed. So I learned to adjust, to read the room, to make sure I didn't give him a reason to be disappointed. And I carried that with me, into every job, every friendship, every relationship. I became very good at sensing what people wanted from me, and then I'd give it to them. At work, I was dependable. I never caused problems. I stayed late when they needed me. I didn't ask for raises. I didn't complain. They liked me. They said I was easy to work with, but I was never promoted. Not really. I stayed in the same role for nearly 30 years, and I told myself it was fine, that I didn't need the recognition. But I think I did. I just didn't want to seem ungrateful by asking for it. With friends, I was the one who always said yes. Need help moving? I'm there. Need someone to listen? I'll cancel my plans. But when I needed something, I didn't ask, because I didn't want to be a burden. So over time, the friendships became one-sided. And when I stopped being useful, they faded. I thought people would notice, that they'd check in, that someone would say, hey, we haven't heard from you. You okay? But they didn't, because I'd trained them not to. I'd spent decades making sure they never had to think about me. Helen passed away 4 years ago, lung cancer. She fought it for a while, but it moved fast at the end. And in those final weeks, when it was just the 2 of us sitting in that hospital room, I kept thinking about all the things I never told her. Not bad things, not secrets, just me, who I actually was. I never told her I didn't like the beach. We went every summer for 30 years because she loved it, and I told myself it didn't matter. But it did. I would have rather spent that time in the mountains. I never told her I wanted to learn piano. She thought it was a waste of money, so I dropped it, and I told myself I didn't care. But I did. I never told her that sometimes I felt lonely, even when we were sitting right next to each other, because I was so afraid that if I spoke up, if I asked for something, if I admitted I wasn't perfectly content, she might pull away. And then where would I be? So I stayed quiet, and I think she died believing I was exactly who I pretended to be. And maybe that's my fault, or maybe it's just what happens when you spend your whole life performing. You forget there's something underneath. My son doesn't call much anymore, maybe once a month. We don't have a lot to talk about. My daughter's better at it. She checks in. But even with her, I can feel the distance. Not because she doesn't care, but because she doesn't really know me. How could she? I never let her. I spent so much time being the father I thought they needed that I never showed them the person I actually was. And now it's too late. You can't suddenly become vulnerable with people in your 70s. It feels false, like you're trying to make up for something, which I guess I am. I live alone now, the same house Helen and I bought 40 years ago. It's too big for one person, but I stay because I don't know where else I'd go. And the silence is loud. I used to think that if you did everything right, if you were kind, if you helped people, if you didn't make waves, then at the end you'd be surrounded by love. But that's not how it works, because people don't love the version of you that agrees with everything. They love the version that's real, and I was never real. I was agreeable, I was accommodating, it was pleasant, but I don't think anyone actually knew me. And that's what I wish I could go back and tell my younger self. That being liked is not the same as being loved. That saying yes to everything means saying no to yourself. That the approval you're chasing, it doesn't last. It doesn't hold you when you're old. It doesn't call you on Sunday. It doesn't sit with you when you're scared. It just evaporates. And you're left with a life that feels like it belonged to someone else. I don't know if this means anything to you. Maybe you're young and you think you have time. Maybe you think you're different, that you're just being considerate, that it's not the same. But it is. And it happens so slowly that you don't notice until it's done. I'm not telling you to be selfish. I'm not saying you should stop caring about people. I'm saying you have to care about yourself too. You have to be willing to disappoint people sometimes, to say no, to take up space, to let people see you, even the parts that aren't easy. Because the alternative is this: a quiet house, a phone that doesn't ring much, and the heavy, aching knowledge that you spent your whole life making sure no one was uncomfortable with you. And in doing so, you made sure no one really knew you. I don't have a lot of time left, I know that. And I'm okay with it, mostly. But if I could go back, I wouldn't try to be so easy to love. I'd try to be worth knowing.